Joining us now to talk more about this historic trial is criminal defense attorney Lou Shapiro. Lou, thank you for taking the time to be with us. So the former president facing 34 counts of falsifying business records. What happens if the jury finds him guilty on just some of those counts?
Well, the prosecution would love that because a conviction on one is like a conviction on all. It's basically an all or nothing game for both sides. If he is convicted, then he will be sentenced down the line to what the judge deems is appropriate. He will be branded a criminal. That's what the prosecution obviously wants out of this, and will suffer the political consequences or gain from the political consequences, depending on how things go, which we have seen so far. It's pretty unpredictable.
And I want to go to a moment yesterday because the judge instructed the jury to disregard part of what Trump attorney Todd Blanche said in his closing arguments. He talked about former President Trump going to prison. Even though that's struck from the record, what impact could that have?
It was very interesting that he made that statement because we all know as defense lawyers that we're not allowed to do that. It's something that we're taught way early on. So this was definitely calculated. He decided that he felt that it was necessary to say it, even though he knew it would be stricken, and he would deal with the, let's call it the professional consequences or unprofessional consequences that resulted. Now, does the jury really care whether a judge strikes testimony? Probably not. They've been in trial for 22 days. They've heard a lot of things being stricken. Will it be held against Trump, the fact that he said it? Probably not. What's surprising is you would think a jury would already know that is a potential consequence of conviction. So I don't know why he felt the need to say that. It might have been that he just got carried away in the moment, which sometimes happens to defense lawyers when they're making an impassioned closing argument. But other than that, I don't think we're going to see it have any, long-term consequences in this case.
And if there is a guilty verdict, there's this question of what happens next. What happens next, especially if Trump appeals?
Well, the next thing that happens is the defense will file what's called a motion for a new trial, asking the judge to basically make his own decision, cast his own vote as a 13th juror to see if he will deadlock the jury, if you will. But oftentimes judges don't want to get in the way of that, and they'll let a higher court look at this. Now, if it does go up on appeal because there's a conviction, there's a couple of interesting issues that might be looked upon by the Court of Appeal. One is the fact that the judge in the trial here, he told the jury they do not have to agree on the actual fraud that might have been covered up. He gave three possible scenarios, one of which is tax, one of which is election fraud. And he said, well, as long as there's an agreement to some form of fraud between the 12, that's sufficient. That's very interesting. We don't usually see that. Usually it has to be unanimous as to what the acts are. In addition, look, there was a lot of testimony given by Stormy Daniels that I think a lot of legal analysts feel it was very prejudicial. It was not relevant. And when there's much more prejudicial evidence than probative value, meaning it just sways the jury one way, nothing to do with why they're having this trial, it can be frowned upon by the Court of Appeal. So those are issues we can look at down the road if he's convicted.
And I know we're still in the early hours of deliberations and juries can be very unpredictable, but as the deliberations continue on, the longer they go, which side does that favor?
The defense in this case would want longer deliberations. The last thing you want is a quick verdict in a case that's lasted 22 days. This many witnesses. Obviously, Trump didn't testify. So the defense would like the jury to really think about this, not rush to a decision. We probably will see some sort of action from the jury by the weekend because that just psychologically tends to go how jurors think in a sense. So we'll see on that end.
And the prosecution, of course, they had to meet this burden beyond a reasonable doubt. I know you've been with us multiple times over the last more than 4 weeks going over this. From your legal perspective, which way are you leaning as far as what a verdict could be?
Well, look, we are all here, me and you, Chris, at a disadvantage, having not been able to sit in the courtroom for the 22 days, listen to the 22 witnesses, and really get into the weeds on this to that extent. But if we take a step back and we look at the fact that they had to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the intent of Trump was to interfere with the election and that they are hinging on Michael Cohen as their key star witness in this, having no recordings or written evidence to back this up, you would think by law he probably would be looking at an acquittal if you really hold the beyond reasonable doubt standard. And that's why I think the defense lawyers kept those lawyers on that jury. They felt that they would really follow the strict letter of the law. However, we know from trial experience that you never know what a jury's going to do. We lose cases that we're supposed to win and win cases that we're supposed to lose. Everybody knows that. So me and you can make predictions, but really, it's pretty valueless here.
Yeah, we are just on verdict watch as we sit here and wait. Criminal defense attorney Lou Shapiro, thank you as always.